I want to read a little bit of Deuteronomy because, like I was saying earlier, I do believe that there is a curse over this land. Now, that might be like very offensive to people, but I'm coming to the realization it doesn't matter if it offends people so much if it's the truth. So let's just start with Deuteronomy 12. These are the laws and right rulings which you guard to do in this land, which Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers is giving you to possess all the days that you live in the soil. Sorry, I'm about to cry. I think that it's so hard here. It's so hot. It is so difficult for people to keep these commandments because they really are living under oppression right now, from foreigners and the spiritual oppression. But I've been praying to God. I'm like, how can people come out of this? Like, and maybe this really is the land, but it's also people are in captivity right now. So it says, completely destroy all the places where the nations which you are depossessing serve their mighty ones on the high mountains and on the hills under every green tree. And you shall break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and burn their asherim with fire. So someone was trying to say that God has a wife. What people are doing is they're conflating Yahweh with Yahuwah. Yahweh is a Canaanite god of metallurgy, and his wife was called Asherah. And so one of the things that Joshua did was he broke down the Asherah pole, which is the same thing as the Asherim. So you're supposed to destroy that. Asherah is also Isis, is Ishtar, Semiramis, this Mary in the Catholic religion, mother goddess worship basically. So you're going to cut down their carved images. Now this is very hard when you're in a land of captivity because you're like, all you're doing is being bombarded with the images of these nations. And so you have to learn to sift the holy from the unholy, which a Bible is a good way to start. Do not do so to Yahuwah your Elohim, but seek the place which Yahuwah your Elohim chooses out of all your tribes, to put his name there for his dwelling place, and there you shall enter. And there you shall take your ascending offerings, and your slaughters, and your tithes, and contributions of your hand, and your vowed offerings, and your voluntary offerings, and the firstling of all your herd and of your flock. And there you shall eat before Yahuwah your Elohim, and shall rejoice in all that you put your hand to, you and your households, in which Yahuwah your Elohim has blessed you. Now I found it fascinating because when people went to go see the Jews in Africa, they were like, the Jews are a very industrious group. They look like the native tribes, but they wear linen and they wear silk. And so this is something else I've been considering, like what is the industriousness of the Jew versus, the native African, which would have been like a Hamitic tribe, which really, Shem was given the land of East Africa in this area, actually. And so what does it look like? What's the difference here? I don't know. I really wish I could see like some black Jews that I know are like Jews and see how they work. So do not do as we are doing here today, each one doing whatever is right in his own eyes, right? Because you have not yet entered the rest and the inheritance which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you. But you shall pass over the garden and shall dwell in the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you to inherit. And he shall give you rest from all your enemies round about, and ye shall dwell safely. And it shall be that unto the place which Yahuwah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell there, you are to bring all that I command you, your ascending offerings, your slaughters, and your tithes, contributions of your hand, and all your choice offerings which you vow. And you shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim, you and your sons and your daughters, and your male servants and your female servants, and the Levite who is within your gates, since he has no portion nor inheritance with you. Guard yourself that which you do not offer your ascending offerings in every place that you see. That's something to pray about, actually. Someone had said, like yesterday, not all the blessings that God gives you is for everyone. And I found it hard to believe, but then I'm like, okay, let me pray about this. It says, except in the place which Yahuwah chooses. Sounds like an answer to me. In one of your tribes, there you are to offer your ascending offerings. There you are to do all that I command you. So what people seem to be doing today, first off, they're giving their prayers and all their money to a wicked nation over there in Israel. Those are not the true Jews. I have all the DNA evidence of it. God has literally been revealing all of it, from historical documentation to scientific proof. They are not the people. But people continually, even though I'm showing them, they start to attack me, and they're like, no, these are the people, the Jews weren't black and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, they were black. It's that you subconsciously have some racist things going on with you, and so you don't want to take the evidence that has been presented to you. And so they are giving things to an evil, wicked group, and they're going to be judged for that because you're not blessing the true lineage of Israel anymore. Only whatever your being desires you shall slaughter and eat according to the blessing of Yahuwah, your Elohim, which he has given you within all your gates. The unclean and the clean do eat of it, of the gazelle and the deer alike. Only the blood you do not eat, pour it on the ground like water. You are not allowed to eat within your gates the tithe of your grain, or your new wine, or of your oil, or the firstlings of your herd of your flock, or of any of your offerings which you vow, or of your voluntary offerings, or of the contribution of your hand. But eat them before Yahuwah your Elohim in the place which Yahuwah your Elohim chooses, you and your son and your daughters and your male servants. Guard yourself that you don't forsake the Levites. It's the Levite or the priest, and they didn't have an inheritance, so they would just actually live in the land, and they would minister. They were kind of like the segue between God and the rest of the people, kind of like Yeshua. So don't put his name too far from you. Don't eat things with blood in it. Guard all of his word. Put away their golden images. Let's skip over to 15. It says, at the end of 7 years, you make a release of debt. And this is the word of the release. Every creditor is to release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He does not require it of his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the release of Yahuwah. I don't know why I thought of this, but sometimes when I'm walking around here, I'm like, even though I do believe that this land is cursed, I can also see the Father's hand, just watching people walk across the street and nobody's getting hit by a car. No, the cars aren't hitting each other. It's almost like he's puppeteering all these people, and they're moving in the way, the flow of things is just this can only be divine, So it says, of a foreigner you can require it, but your hand is to release whatever is owed to your brother. Which reminds me, when I was a child, I was going to walk out on the street. I had looked left and right, and then I felt this hand pull my right shoulder back, and I looked to the left and almost got hit by a bus. So if that hand wouldn't have touched me, then I would have been hit by that bus. When he says angels encamp around us, he's not lying. So I don't know if I mentioned this in my other videos, but the reason I'm here is because I was trying to go to Kenya, but I had to jump through all these hoops and that kind of stuff. Got stuck in Dallas for a while, and then God's like, go to Tanzania. And I'm like, what? And then I look it up, and it's $100 for a visa. I'm like, what the freak? That is so expensive. That is the most I ever paid for a visa ever. You go to Asian countries, they're $15, $30 max. Mexico's $30. Even Kenya was $50, $100. I'm like, all right, if you're saying it, then I'll go. But I'm not happy that I gotta pay $100. And so I looked it up, and it's try to get your visa before you go. And I'm like, how is this gonna work out? I'm trying to get out of Dallas, and then I looked it up, prayed about it, looked it up again, and then it turned out that you can do a visa on arrival. And so I ended up doing that, got to, the place where you enter, and they were checking my documents and all that kind of stuff. And it was funny because I think the guy was going to try to play me and charge more money, and then I started praying, and I felt the spirit come down. And as soon as that happened, his attitude had switched, and he's like, okay, you're good to go, you go pay over there. So I definitely think it was ordained by the Lord. Oh, and I had seen a white cross glowing over East Africa. So again, this place is the land of Shem. There are many Hebrews that were scattered into this part. Hebrews, when I say Hebrews, I mean Israelites, and even the false Jews admit that. So it says, of a foreigner you shall require it, but your hand is to release whatever is owed by your brother. Only there shall be no poor among you, for Yahuwah does greatly bless you in the land which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you to possess as inheritance. There will be no poor in the land. All right? Get right with God. Only if you diligently obey Yahuwah your Elohim to guard, to do all these commands which I'm commanding you today. For Yahuwah your Elohim shall bless you as he has promised you, and you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. And what's the problem today, especially black people in America? We always have to borrow from other people. Wow. You'll rule over many nations, but they don't rule over you. And that's what's going on. These Hebrews are being ruled over because we are under a curse. When there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers within any of the gates in your land, which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you, do not harden your heart nor shut your hand from your poor brother. So, actually, I mentioned earlier, I was talking about, they trade our birth certificates on the stock market because technically people that reside in America, they're still slaves on some kind of level. And so this is what it is. These people are ruling over us because we're under a curse. For you shall certainly open your hand to him, certainly lend him enough for his need, whatever he needs. Notice it says lend. Be on guard lest there be a thought of Belial in your heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release is near, and your eye is evil against your poor brother, and you give him not. And he shall cry out to Yahuwah against you, and it shall be a sin in you. You shall certainly give to him, and your heart shall not be grieved when you give to him, because for this reason Yahuwah your Elohim does bless you in all your works in which you put your hand. So yes, give to your brother. And then it talks about freeing people that are servants, which are typically your brother. These people, they always want to tell you what to worship and how to worship, not realizing that this book actually belongs to us. Like, you don't really have a say in it anymore. So stop coming to me talking about, oh God, he likes slavery, your God is wrong, because in their mind they're thinking of the Christian, like the mass churches and that kind of stuff. But this does not belong to them. It belongs to the Hebrews. It doesn't, and so you have no authority to try to tell me what's wrong or right with my God anymore. All right, because these things are happening on purpose. You're spiritually enslaved, and so now you are physically enslaved as well. And many people were servants because they owed debts and that kind of thing. But as it says here, they could be released after the 7th year. So it says, set apart to Yahuwah all your firstborn. So firstborn, get the birthright. This is Deuteronomy 16. So this is talking about keeping the feast, which a lot of people don't do. Gentiles try to come in and try to say, no, you're not supposed to keep those things. You can keep that to yourself. We as Hebrews are going to keep those things. So, chapter 17, don't slaughter to Yahuwah your Elohim a bull or sheep which has any blemish. Do according to the Torah and the way that they teach you. That's a good thing. Don't do arrogantly. Let's see. Give the first fruits of your grain to Yahuwah. That's chapter 18. Don't do according to the abominations. And let's get to 19. When Yahuwah your Elohim cuts off the nations whose land your Elohim is giving you, and you depossess them and dwell in their cities, in their houses, separate 3 cities for yourself in the midst of your land, which Yahuwah your Elohim is giving you to possess. But when anyone hates his neighbor and shall lie in wait for him, and rise against him and strike his being so that he dies, then he shall flee to one of these cities. And the elders of his city shall send and bring him from there, and give him into the hand of the Redeemer of blood, and he shall die. Your eye shall not pardon him, but you shall purge the blood of the innocent from Israel, so that it may be well with you. Don't remove your neighbor's boundary. One witness does not rise up against any man concerning any crookedness or any sin that he commits. At the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, and a matter is established. So yeah, this talks about judges that serves in certain days. So there's a time of judgment. I was talking to someone last night because they were coming against this prophetess, and I'm like, ooh, this is a big no-no, because she clearly is under God, and if you talk to her or talk about her in a certain way, God will certainly do something to you. When he says don't touch his anointed, this woman is anointed by God, okay? And I don't say that about everyone because I don't trust most people. People they preach and they teach and all this kind of stuff. They say, oh, I'm the prophet, oh, God will bless you, hashalalabosha, and all this kind of nonsense. And they're not real. But this woman, the things that she's prophesying, I've been given very similar prophecies, and people that are legit prophets have been given very similar prophecies as well. And so this young man's trying to argue, oh, she's not doing the things in which, prophets are supposed to do. They're just supposed to preach the gospel. And I'm like, do you even know what the gospel is? There's 2 gospels in my opinion. If you don't agree, that's okay, I don't care. So the first gospel is repent, for the kingdom of heaven draws near. The second gospel is God has saved you. This is Paul. God has saved you, have faith and that kind of stuff. So it talks about how the days of Noah, people were eating and drinking and giving in to marriage and that kind of thing until the day that the flood came. people don't understand when the Messiah came, he said, don't judge, lest thee be judged. But he also said, one judges you at the end. And so this is a time of judgment. When Noah was doing what he was doing, he wasn't preaching the gospel of the kingdom of heaven, nor that God has saved you, have faith. He was warning people of what was about to befall the earth. Just like mark your doorposts with the blood of the lamb. It's the same thing. And so, they're coming against this woman who is warning people. And he was weird. He was all like, oh, well, it says that Noah was a preacher, and a preacher is just supposed to preach the gospel. And I'm like, first off, preaching means to proclaim. It says he was a preacher of righteousness. This woman is preaching righteousness all over her TikTok, all over YouTube. This is what she's doing. She's doing that, and she's warning people, telling people to repent, because she knows these judgments are about to befall the earth. And so do any of us who are actually speaking with the Heavenly Father. So, it's these kinds of things that get people in trouble when they don't really know who the Father is and what the Word says. I think it's 19 real quick. It says, Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say to them, be set apart, for I, Yahuwah your Elohim, am set apart. Each one of you shall fear his mother and his father, and guard my Sabbaths. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not turn to idols, and do not make for yourselves molded mighty ones. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And when you slaughter a peace offering to Yahuwah, slaughter it for your acceptance. It is eaten in the same day that you slaughter it, and on the next day. And that which is left on the third day is burned with fire. So if it is eaten at all on the third day, it is abominable, it is not accepted. And he who eats bears his crookedness, because he has profaned the set-apart offering of Yahuwah, and that being shall be cut off from his people. And when you reap the harvest of this land, do not completely reap the corners of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest, and do not glean your vineyard, or gather every grape of your vineyard. Leave them for the poor and the sojourners. God is a giver of things, okay? That's who he is. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not steal. Do not lie, do not deceive one another, and do not swear falsely by my name. So stop faking that you're a child of God and you really just want some money. So profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. So I have seen the people here, they do all this. They lie, they steal. It's like a daily thing. It's like a part of their being to try to deceive people for things. And this is what is the issue. That's what's causing the curse. And they swear falsely by his name. I've been told by several people here, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. How are you a Christian when you're sleeping with men for money? This is really happening here. It says, do not oppress your neighbor or rob him. The wages of him who is hired is not to remain with you all night until morning. Do not curse the deaf or put the stumbling block before the blind, but fear Elohim. I am Yahuwah. Do no unrighteousness in right ruling. Do not be partial to the poor or favor the face of the great, but rightly rule your neighbor in righteousness. Do not go slandering among your people. Do not stand against the blood of your neighbor. I am Yahuwah. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Reprove your neighbor for certain, and bear no sin because of him. So this can get hard after a while, because people are always like, don't judge me. Who are you to judge? Like when Moses came to rescue the Israelites out of their slavery, they were like, who made you a judge? And these are the things that they say all the time, and it gets them in trouble, because if God sends someone to correct you and you don't take the correction, then you're and you can't blame anyone but yourself after that. So it says, do not take vengeance or bear a grudge against the children of your people. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahuwah. Guard my laws. Do not let your livestock mate with another kind. Do not sow your field with mixed seed. Don't mix the holy with the unholy. And do not put a garment woven of two sorts of thread upon you. And when a man has intercourse with a woman who is a female servant engaged to a man and is to be ransomed, but she has not been ransomed nor set free, there shall be an inquiry. But they are not put to death, because she was not free. And he shall bring his guilt offering to Yahuwah to the door of the tent of appointment, a ram as a guilt offering. Now, one of these atheists, they tried to ask, well, how come your God has slavery? And then he's like, and people kept saying, oh, well, that's Old Testament. Here's the deal. The Old Testament is like the law written on stones. And so when the true seed comes into the world, I don't think these things are going to exist so much, not in the way that they did back then. So if a master has a female servant and he's really under Christ, he's not going to be trying to sleep with her in the first place. Because he also talks about in the New Testament how a master is supposed to love their servants as themselves, so that wouldn't happen. But since the hardness of heart, these kinds of things were happening. And the priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering before Yahuwah for his sin which he has done. And the sin which he has sinned shall be forgiven him. And when you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food, then you shall reckon their fruit as uncircumcised. For 3 years it is uncircumcised to you, it is not eaten. And in the 4th year all the fruit is set apart, praises to Yahuwah. And in the 5th year you eat its fruit, so that increases yield to you. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Do not eat meat with blood, do not practice divination or magic, which both are very, very popular here. There's so much divination here, and I'm picking up on it so deeply. There is a strong, strong serpent spirit here, and I think it's what's causing a lot of the oppression as well, because once you engage in things that are against God, that spirit is going to attach to you, and then it's going to be very hard to remove, and you're going to keep practicing things, and you're going to fall and fall and fall. So it says, do not round the corner of your head, and do not destroy the corner of your beard, and do not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor put tattoo marks on you. I am Yahuwah. So God hates tattoos. All right, I tried to talk to this Christian lady about it. Her name on TikTok is like Coffee and Tattoos or something. I don't know. Gentiles don't listen a lot of times unless you look like them, act like them, or God has to really come and soften their heart type deal. So it says, do not profane your daughter by making her a whore, so that the land is not whore, and the land becomes filled with wickedness. Guard my Sabbaths and reverence my set apart place. I am Yahuwah. Another thing that Gentiles have no say in anymore. You're not about to tell me not to keep the Sabbath. Do not turn to mediums, and do not seek after spiritists to be defiled by them. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Rise up before the gray-headed, and ye shall favor the face of an old man, and ye shall fear your Elohim. I am Yahuwah. And when a sojourner sojourns with you in the land, do not oppress him. Let the sojourner who sojourns among you be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. Isn't that beautiful? We have such an issue with not letting people in. Just the fact that I have to pay $100 to get in a country in which my ancestors descend from, not that it should matter, says a lot. This is Satan's way of trying to be all-powerful, all-knowing. But God let people cross into lands and cross out of lands. He let them do that. Especially Israel. That's what he did. There was people that were from other lands that came to sojourn, and God said treat them as native borns. Isn't that crazy? So it says, let the sojourner who sojourn be a native, for you were sojourners in the land of Mitzrayim, and God kept them there. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Do no unrighteousness in right ruling, in measurement of length, in weight, or in measuring liquids. Have right scales. Oh Lord. Any foreign country you go to, although Tanzania has been the best, they will often not use right scales. They won't do it because they're like, well, you come from this land, you have more money than us, so we're going to try to dupe you for more money and that kind of stuff. So unfortunately you have to barter a lot, which I'm not a huge fan of. My Chinese friend, she's way better at it than me, because I think this is just something she's used to. And so I said, all right, I have to adapt my behavior a bit, because if I don't, then I'm going to continually be deceived. And so yeah, but I still pay a little bit more, because it's still pretty cheap for the most part. But this is what it's called, to use unjust weights, so don't charge more than what it's worth type deal. Because what people will also do is they will take the weights off. Like a lot of people in the Christian church especially, they will condemn you for something that they don't know anything about, they don't seek to understand, and they will not condemn the person who is calling you names and cussing you out and these kinds of things because they agree with them. They're not using just weights. So it says, a right ephah and a right hin. I am Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, and ye shall guard all my laws and all my right rulings and do them. I am Yahuwah. So he is actually expecting us to do this. And so again, like I said earlier, many people are under a curse because they are not keeping his laws, his statutes, and his commandments. And unfortunately, they're practicing divination. This is the spirit of the serpent, and because of that spirit, they believe that they are gaining things, but they actually end up losing things because they're continually cursing themselves and acting in ways and in spirits that are oppressing them. And in turn, people around them end up the same way because they're not teaching each other right ruling, and they think that their behaviors and their actions are appropriate when they're not. So yeah, we have something on our hands, but I believe that the Father will turn things around hopefully here soon, and and we can all be one with Him again. So you guys be blessed and have a good one. Bye.